everyone. I'm Denise Garth, Chief Strategy Officer at Majesco, and you're listening to the Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast series. Follow along as I interview the best and brightest leaders in the insurance industry and insurtech landscape to bring you the latest in digital transformation, innovation, industry trends, challenges, and opportunities, as well as next-gen technologies. We use our experience to anticipate what's next without losing sight of what's now. Stay tuned to find out your next now. Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast, the Future of Insurance podcast series. And I am thrilled to have colleague, a partner, but a dear friend of mine, Tara Kelly, who's the founder and CEO of SPLICE, join us today. Tara, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Denise. I'm excited to be here. I always love talking to you about what's going on in insurance. And so this seemed like a great fit for us. Thanks so much for having me.
Everybody knows everybody, it seems like, in this industry. But I find that, with a lot of new people coming in, they don't necessarily know a lot of us that have been in it for some time. So why don't you give a little bit of background on yourself, about SPLICE, why you started it, and then talk about our strategic partnership.
Sounds awesome. Well, I started coding when I was 9, and I promise I won't take you from my life from 9. But my dad was a programmer in the 70s, and I wrote my first program in COBOL. And I think there was a seed planted in that moment about how amazing software can really be in platforms when you set something in action and it keeps working and it keeps moving forward. And I often like to think of programming like gardening, and that's that if you architect it well and you think it through, it'll perform beautifully through multiple seasons. And I really, really have always found that customer engagement and the experience is kind of like great gardening. You can't just pick one great flower you're in love with for its color and think that's going to be great to just throw that thing in there, right? These experiences are connected. And so I'm a bit notorious for having this expression that I always say balance is for yoga, right? Do what you love and follow your heart. So I really started SPLICE 18 years ago because I believed in the power of communications and using data for good in an informed way. And it was such a natural fit in insurance. And, Denise, it's funny, and we'll date ourselves, but we signed our first partner agreement in 2015.
Almost 9 years.
Exactly. We'll have to do a big anniversary celebration. And we launched our first products, in 2016. And it's been everything from late premium reminders to understanding what's happening in claims to catastrophic event notifications. But I think the thing that always has held true and across the board for all of us, for so many of us, is it's the customer experience. And it's that everything from that first quote all the way through to payments to claims, you need to have a brand experience that you're proud of. And so customer engagement's a big deal. At SPLICE Software, we focus on text, call, chat, email, voice first. I still like to include it. Eventually, we're going to ask, Google and Alexa these things. But for now, It's music, weather. But it really is just, SPLICE is about adding in those highly personalized communication pieces when you need it. And whether it's a two-way conversation with the customer or a proactive notification, I've always loved the commitment you guys have at Majesco, and I think it's been part of the partnership that we want to empower carriers, right? We want to empower them to have those conversations with those stakeholders. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and we're still excited to be doing it.
Yeah, we are too. I think that this whole concept about agent and customer engagement experience continues to be a top of mind for insurers, particularly given the current environment that insurers are really facing a lot of challenges with customers in the price increases, et cetera, increasing claims and wanting to know what's kind of happening. And so this experience and this communication aspect becomes even more important. But too often, a lot of the carriers don't have a single view to enable kind of that, you called it a brand experience, but I kind of call it a holistic, seamless experience for that customer. Talk about what that single view of the customer means for you guys and why it's so important.
Yeah, single view of customer. And I think no matter how you slice or dice it, you need single view. And so let's say, what is that? I think defining it's critical. It's really making sure that any vendor, any staff, anybody that can speak on behalf of your brand, that data is coming back in. And let's be careful with the definition of even saying speak. We don't mean speak, right? We mean chat. We mean search. We mean enter forms. We mean any interaction. We mean, the experience with an adjuster, the experience with an agent across the entire journey, bringing that single view of customer. And I think at the end of the day, we're all out there in the real world as people and consumers. And I think sometimes the best way to relate to it is go back to like a retail experience. I love some of the favorite horror shows from retail. I love the one that they really gave Macy's a hard time. This is going back like, 10 years, but a customer had been looking up a bedding set online. She went into the store to buy it. She got into the parking lot, and sure enough, the e-com team had sent her a 50% off because she had abandoned her cart. So she marched back into the store and said, "Why didn't you give me 50% off? I'm returning it. I'll buy it online and pick it up in store. Thanks very much." Right. And you're like, and it was a bad experience for Macy's. It was a bad experience for the customer. It was just a bad experience, right? And insurance companies don't want this either, right? And so I think when we look at what is single view, it's really making sure we're sharing data, and it's setting us up to be able to really have that one place, that source of truth where all conversations are coming in. It's not okay just to be like, yeah, we sent them something. That's not going to give you single view, right? So
No.
that whole story needs to be there. Single view of customer is required, and it's only possible with APIs, because when you think about your entire network, there's a lot of people that are having quote unquote conversations in any channel with that end policyholder.
You talked about the two-way communication, and one of the fastest growing areas of engagement is two-way texting and two-way chat. I mean, I get it all the time with a lot of providers that I work with. It can be like my hair salon, it's my dentist's office, it's my doctor's office. I mean, I'm getting it all the time as a reminder, but also just to make sure that I'm confirming things so that something didn't change in my schedule. And it's becoming kind of common. It's kind of an expectation. So with so many businesses using it, insurers really haven't really gravitated to that yet, but customers are expecting it. Talk about what you're doing in this area and how we're partnering to be able to provide those capabilities to insurers, not just for servicing, but also for claims, the area that people are most concerned about. Sometimes I hear this comment, but what about compliance? What about privacy concerns? Maybe you can kind of address that too, because I just look at it as convenience. It is just, I love it because it helps me in my busy life to know, oh yeah, I got to remember that.
I think that's a really good call out on convenience versus compliance, and they don't have to be enemies. It feels like we're having a web debate again, right? Like on web experience, user experience versus performance, right? We've been there before. This isn't new. So two-way text and chat are absolutely exploding. And I think that including both of them in your strategy is a critical piece. When we talk with the product team at Majesco, we're working on integrations, exciting announcements. So stay tuned, people, for dates and times, and we're working on this. But we really have been looking at it holistically. And so talking about things like, as an example, workers' comp. Well, workers' comp has a lot of very state-specific legislation, and with HIPAA compliance and everything else, that's not a conversation that will meet any of the criteria that is needed in a text message, right? So you need to have a chat function for that. It's critical. And yet at the same time, to your point, you can't get so fussed on compliance that you lose the convenience that is necessary. Having both text and chat and having them sort of seamlessly move together are really critical. One of the easy ways, and one of the things we're working together with, and SPLICE has launched for others, is just even sometimes on that two-way chat is having some ability with AI to determine keywords and move them to a secure URL, right? Giving them a link, get them into a secure environment, and move to a different medium. And so I think the exciting thing today is we really do become a fully cross-channel experience pretty fast. So even if it starts with a two-way text and now we're having a chat and then it becomes an online secure environment to complete that transaction, sometimes it's going to be simple. It's just you and your adjuster agreeing if you have time to stop at Starbucks, right? And that's a compliant conversation, and maybe he needs one too. But I think that having the opportunity to use both is important. And when you think of what the environment is like in-house and within the call center, you do need to be able to view it in that same thread and have, again, to the earlier point, a single view of customer. So the conversations that are happening on text and happening on chat and call center need to be viewed in that same place. It's been really fun working together to look at like how we want to bring this into the screen, how we're making sure it's a single sign-on, they're staying in their Majesco environment, they're having this functionality coming right forward. And it really is everything from the claims piece, it is the adjuster experience that matters, and it also is underwriting. And I bring that up because we've been talking about it. We started policy billing. We've always had a great connection with our partnership in policy and billing side. And there's been so much change with AI and underwriting. Those guys have questions, right? And so they need the chat functionality and they need text functionality for an entirely different service reason, but it's way further up funnel. So it's a big piece. It doesn't have to be hard. We all use it already. There's a great ability to template it. I guess that's the other thing, Denise, I would really want to call out with this is you can bring in security and compliance with templating in certain areas, with AI for keywords, with moving to secure environments. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring it out in a safe way and bring that convenience to your users.
The one thing that you said about the privacy concerns and the ability to send you a secure link, with maybe a secure code that you go on to another to validate that it's you. I get that a lot now, particularly around any kind of financial kind of transaction or financial organization. We were hacked, or a company was hacked that had our personal information. So we got free access to Experian. And so I go out there and I kind of check things periodically. And every time I go out, I get a code to validate that it's me. I get on my text and then I put it in. Every time I do it, I feel like, wow, I like that because I feel confident that they know that they're talking to me and that my data is private and secure.
I think that's a great additional point, right? Two-factor authentication is expected in a lot of these instances. And so making sure that you have the compliance and security pieces for the dialogues that do need it, but not making it onerous for the ones that don't. And that's where I think you want to work with great partners and vendors to give you some guidance if you're new to it. But there is the opportunity to sort of find the middle ground forward. Everybody is looking to have a more convenient experience. And we also I laugh, but I think that the old adage from call centers, like first call resolution, we still want first touch resolution just because it's not on a call always, right? So being able to get to that secure place to get the job done in that same experience and that same first touch, I think that's really critical. And we need to have the ability to just move between text, calls, online, secure in that safe way to get the job done because we all have other things to do.
Whole concept of how we're engaging with customers and their experience, it's really beginning to influence what they think about the companies that they're interacting with, in this case, insurers. And one of the things that we've had around for a really long time is this concept of net promoter score. And the ability to measure what really matters at the time it matters has been elusive. But I think now with these technologies, it kind of comes together, it merges together. Why is that? And how is SPLICE addressing that? And how are the multiple engagement options becoming increasingly important and feed into that net promoter score?
There's a lot there. I mean, you're speaking my love language. It really, really, you are. And I know we chat about this in lots of ways. Net promoter has so much value because of the fact that it's just that quantitative number, not just a qualitative response. And both are necessary, and you can build into those details of why. But I love the standards within NPS. So SPLICE is NPS certified for people that are listening and don't know. We've spent a lot of time in this space. When we looked at some more integrations and as we looked at and congrats to you guys on a lot of the recognition on bringing AI in, but as we looked at the amount of change and what's happening in your platform, when we talk to the product team and our product team talks with yours, we're saying we need to say, how was that? And how was the experience? And, did we make your life easier? It's not a great idea to wait till the absolute end of what you perceive as this story, right? To the point it needs to be in the moment. And so it's really making sure that when you're running a chat on your site, you're popping it up right there. How was this chat? What was your experience, right? Just this one micro moment. We've talked about being there in those micro moments and that ability. And so you need to have that. You need to have it in your call center. It needs to be an outbound text message. It needs to be after a payment experience. If you launch new screens and you've got something new happening in, third-party medical liability and you've got other options, or you've got finally new coverage happening on the coastal properties and you've got all these new greenfields coming into the space and it's a totally different interface, right? Because they're figuring out, how can I safely underwrite this space? You might need to ask your agents, hey, how was that? Is this working, right? And so popping those opportunities, whether it's via text, email, call, and within the chat, like natively in the environment, that's where you want to be. And then we so our Thrive survey program, and I think we even have, some great material that we can share on that, but our Thrive survey program is cross-channel and we bring all of the data forward. And one of the things that really helped, I think, win some of the awards we have for the program is we use tag management. And I love it when simple things win because we all know what tags are, right? It's like, yeah, right. You go on to book a flight and you're like, I only want to fly, Delta, and I only want United, and I only want morning, and you got all these rules. And now it shows you the data with that as your filter. exactly the same in insurance. So when you do a survey, you can say, I only want people with premium increase, and I only want, multifamily, or I only want coastal property or recent cat. And then boom, you can see that NPS just for that. You can set all your reports for that. And so at SPLICE, we've been really, really focused on this area of surveys, whether it's customer effort score, NPS, CSAT. Sometimes there is a hybrid. Sometimes that's what's needed. But what we found is that it's been our fastest growing product, actually. And I think it's because everybody has made changes to the customer experience because technology is moving so fast. And so we need to get it out there. We need to make those changes, but we do need to pause and say, how was it? And not just the broader question, but in those little micro ones, because those are the actionable bites that as a carrier, you can do something about that one little thing. If you get such a massive comprehensive survey, it is very helpful from a strategy perspective, but your ability to action change in a quick way, not so good when it becomes such a broad survey, right? So having those in the moment, quick measurements, triggered throughout the journey. And that's when we look at, the platform and where we want to do those trigger points and giving flexibility to our shared customers to trigger those at those key places where they've made changes. Ooh, that's exciting because now they can tweak it while that project's still alive. And I do. I said it at the beginning. It's my love language. I get real excited about it, but I think there's a lot of power. Like there's a lot of juice in that squeeze. And if you're going to be collecting this data, my God, you want to do something with it, right? So
I think, quite honestly, Tara, it has become even more important because, to your point, those micro indications are really, really important because we got so many things happening. We got price increases, because risk is greater. We've got cats that are happening. We've got different kinds of experiences that we're putting out, from an insurance perspective,
yeah.
online, digital, whatever it may be. And you never know which one is the one that's really having an impact on customer retention. And
Yeah.
I think if you're able to get down to those micro levels through an NPS score at those micro levels, you can begin to pinpoint what are the reasons that people are looking to leave? What is impacting and improving retention versus going out and looking for another carrier just because it's price? Because if it's all going to be about price, regardless of what you do, nothing's really going to help in that situation. And so we can't just knee jerk everything. And I think that's the value of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, you reminded me talking to a couple carriers recently and just talking about the survey itself let us see that by doing notifications too early on a renewal, we were actually increasing shopping. And it wasn't just the time factor, it's that they felt they didn't have enough information. So they started going out to learn. And so what we found for these guys is, hey, we just need to get this information in a more detailed way out to these policyholders on renewal so they'll feel safe, so they know, because there is changes, right? And so when you see change and you have uncertainty, uncertainty never feels good for any of us. Our species doesn't do great with it. We cope, but it's not our fave. Yeah. And so I think that it's in so many touch points that if you can just have that survey that sits on top of that NPS, so you get a low score here, what's going on? We have a low renewal. We can build on that, find those follow-on questions, and then really learn because that was so easy to fix, right? Or
Yeah.
changing timing. It was such a simple, low-cost fix, and yet it did so much to renewals. And so those kind of opportunities, I mean, I think the lesson is most brands have worked really hard for those policyholders, that book of business. And there is a relationship that is real there. And you want to be able to continue that journey with them in an authentic way. And if you knew that this one little thing you would change would make a better experience, or maybe this new thing in payments was too confusing, or whatever that might be, within the claim, it's something you can get your hands around. So asking and having that two-way dialogue is critical.
We obviously have been really focused in on the PNC side. That's really where we've, over the last 9 years, have had a lot of focus. And it's been driven because the PNC, quite frankly, we're in a transformation stage where they were putting in some new core systems that really allowed that digital experience to really kind of grow and to morph. That's not always been the case on the L&AH side because we got a lot of legacy 30 plus years old, but that's beginning to change. And there's an opportunity on that side as well. Talk about that opportunity, what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right on the PNC side. It's been so much change, so much opportunity. As we look towards life and annuity, we're seeing a real change in what's happening with bringing AI in and bringing more data. And so having access in that ability to underwrite with more detail, to understand which cases are going to require more information and which aren't. And what's happening as a result of it is there's been a lot of change for both agents and adjusters, because this is an area that is a lot more human touch. A lot fewer people are ever just clicking online by themselves and buying policy, right? So we know that. And at the same time, it's also it's a really tough space, because lots of people have like a landline that isn't even in service anymore on file with their carrier because it's just auto pay, right? Like this is such a funny animal when it comes to communication and the flow here. And so we see a ton of opportunity by engaging more often, by offering more services, by offering the ability to top up some of your funds, by reaching out at different times. And believe it or not, serving in those experiences. After a major life event, you're going to be speaking about your experience and what it was like with your insurance company to every single person you know. And reaching out early and often to see how they're doing processing a claim is actually really appreciated. And so we've seen a new appetite for like saying, oh my gosh, we're scared to ask these people. Like we can't ask them a survey, to recognizing that there's a tasteful and appropriate way to make sure we are taking care of them in that moment, as well as earlier up funnel when we're making sure they have the right product or that we're actually growing their product. So the number of people that are uninsured or underinsured is terrifying, right? In the United States, I think that the pandemic and everything else sort of brought it to light that we really do need to be looking at this. More people had to utilize the product than ever before. And so whether it's the benefits products and some of the other annuity products, people want to talk about it. And guess what? They're bringing all of those expectations, right? About real time and everything else, right? I think there's a huge opportunity there. And there's also, I mean, an exciting play for carriers. If this is an area you're doing business, like this is a growing market. This is a very exciting growing market. People are looking at it more than ever before. So don't miss that, right? And keep your standards high, because great partnerships and great vendors, we can bring communication and that connection and that intimacy that's part of those one-on-one relationships. And we can bring some technology to augment the connection and actually enhance it versus deteriorate it.
And I think in particular with a younger generation of buyers, they're used to the texting and the chatting and everything else. And so there's going to be even a more intense expectation for that as they buy life insurance, as they buy health insurance, whatever that insurance is on that segment of the industry.
Absolutely. And so for them, that is a really great experience and highly personalized, right? And so I do think that sort of bleeds into that, where we see so much, and we've talked about it almost at nausea, I guess, globally, AI, we're sick of it, right? But we can't be, because it's changing how we do everything. And I think to your point, these new generation that are looking at these products, they're just data native and they understand it and they understand privacy different and they're used to all of that. And the expectations are so high. And because of the change, we need to lean into it. And that's where technology is quite good at tapping into that, right? It's really built for this.
So when I look back at our journey together as partners almost 9 years ago now, we started out, I can vividly remember demo of all of the few partners that we worked with that brought this kind of customer experience together. And you guys were a key part of that we showed it live on stage. And I think it was around first notice of loss. It was really about some of the basic of communication, but we've come as an industry and from a technology standpoint so far. Now we're into the two ways. We're into a lot of other types of technologies, leveraging AI, Gen AI now is out there. What do you see as the next kind of focus for technology in customer engagement and experience? And what's exciting you that, will kind of do something different and even more powerful?
Yeah, I love this question. I really am super excited to be able to leverage the personalization abilities that we have. And so before it could be, inserting a couple key things that built connection. And we've always had a ton of data, but because of the architecture and because of the structure, we just couldn't really tap it the way we wanted to truly on the one-to-one. It was getting there, right? But we've really, really changed the game by building in that layer of Gen AI that can go do that heavy lifting into that data stack and bring back this intelligence. We're like, awesome, this is what we get to action. And so it's just incredibly exciting because you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm sure if you kind of remember it, if you don't, just Google it fast. But that top is really, it's about desires and perceiving. And so as a carrier, we want to perceive their needs. We want to know that next product. We want to know when it's the right time to put more, funds in your annuity. We want to know these things. And this is where Gen AI creates this connection, and with SPLICE, with our, patents and the work that we did, 10, 12, 15 years ago, we see the ability to leverage that of real-time data feeds on these highly personalized interactions. And I do want to call this out because partly what you asked is what's next. And I think we must address this privacy, consent, permission thing and stop being afraid of it, because the new generation expects it. They expect to delete any message they want whenever they want. They do expect, totally be forgotten. They get a give and take consent whenever they want. And we need to know that that's okay. And we need to really get comfortable, not just measuring their experience in the journey, but having the opportunity to give and take consent and being really upfront about it. We're going to be using this for this. It started with cookies, and we're really getting there. But I do think, Denise, when I get really excited, there's that last piece that we do have to have it with the consent, the privacy, permission, preference. Because once we do that and we build it in, we truly can live that vision of saying Gen AI allows us access to the data. Everyone's on their own unique personalized journey. Oh my gosh, right? And it's available at scale. And we're like this close. And so don't be afraid. Like, that would be my biggest thing that I champion. Don't be afraid to ask. You don't want to communicate with somebody in a way you don't want to use data they didn't want you to have. It won't end well, right? Just ask, build that in and use plain language, because people are trying to engage with you and it's going to work. So I'm very excited. I think we're on the precipice of the top of the pyramid. And I think we're getting so close that it's just incredibly exciting.
Imagine what that can unleash, for the industry and the perceptions and the trust it can generate.
People do business with people they trust. And I think I learned that at one of my years as a university student in a summer sales job, but I'll never forget that. People do business with people they trust. And that's true at every level, right? Even if you're buying milk, you trust it's not sour when you buy it. You trust it didn't sit in the sun, right? Like, there is a place you might not buy milk. We don't realize how true that is all the way up the value chain of everything we purchase. And I think that we need to bring it a little further forward so we can truly automate these personalized journeys and have that value and that loyalty. And you're right, it's trust.
It's always down to trust. So one of the things I like to do at the end of my podcast is the same question I ask everybody. So I always love this because we haven't hardly had any, probably a handful of duplicates, but everybody has a different flavor. So if you could use one word or phrase to describe the future of insurance, what would it be and why, Tara?
Yeah, I knew this was coming, so I'd be a liar if I said I didn't do some homework. But I have to come back to this one because it just is the most true. Personalized. I believe it's going to be
good one.
It's going to be personalized coverage. You're going to know me, right? And it's going to be the right value exchange for me. We're going to have that micro moment of insurance. We're going to have a personalized communication, and it's going to be a personalized interface. And possibly, and I log it's going to be different for me because we have the ability to do it. I'm very excited about the future of insurance. I believe insurance is the guardrails to doing everything we want to do in this world, and we need those guardrails up. And for me to love that experience, I want it to be personalized, right? So I'm extremely excited for where we're going with this. We're so close with so many things we've been, dreaming about for a long time, and I think it's going to be personalized.
I think for me, having been in the industry my entire career, this is actually the most exciting time I've seen in this industry because the possibilities are truly endless. We now have the creativity of the types of products that can really do some things in a really powerful way to help assess and help manage risk or hopefully decrease risk with the right technologies. So the combination is just so powerful. And you're right, we're that close to really unleashing a lot of possibilities that we only thought were dreams 3-5 years ago and really can actually happen today.
I agree. I mean, it's a great time. We should do a shout out to everybody who's thinking of a career switch, come to insurance, because it's never been brighter.
Thank you so much, Tara. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we do value the partnership with SPLICE so much. And gosh, I forget how long it's been because it seems like it was yesterday in many ways, because we see each other so often. But it's been a great journey, and I'm looking forward to the journey ahead.
Me too. All of the new announcements and the friendships we build. We're lucky. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. That's it for this week's episode of Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast. Subscribe to our market-leading podcast series available wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in the next time.